Blue Demon Banter podcast. We have a very special guest, but before we get into our special guest, John Keaton in the house. Right beside me is the man, the myth, the legend, Joey. Joey, how are we feeling right now?
Man, we're feeling good. We got a special guest on here today. Happy to introduce him, but DePaul 5-0. DePaul 5-0. So another big win last night for them.
Yes, sir. Our special guest is the man behind all the madness right now, the undefeated champ, the one and only Chris Holtman. Mr. Holtman, how we doing today?
I got my own personal hype man right here. That's impressive. I need to bring you on the road with me.
We could get something worked out for that, for sure.
Okay. All right. Good. 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 Yeah, I'm
So,
doing well. I'm doing well. Yeah, it's the games are coming pretty quickly here, so we're just jumping right from one opponent to the next here. So, pretty busy schedule, but good to be with you guys.
it's good to be
Yep.
with you too.
Yep.
Joey, start us off, man. Start us off.
Now let's start us off. All right. We'll start with this question for you, Chris. So, I know you're a big Ken Palm guy. You guys have kind of traveled up the ranks here. You're up to 120, 121 now. So I guess how much do you kind of value in what Ken Palm says about maybe your offense and your defense heading into the sixth game of the season?
I think you said it. I think the data really becomes valuable as you get into, a third of your season. It's not to discount the games, but I think you just need more data on a lot of opponents. I think you can start to see some trends in how we're playing, both offensively and defensively, or how an opponent's playing. But I really lean on Ken Palm early in the year, but it becomes more and more valuable as the year goes on.
100%. And I feel like looking at those rankings really helped you out and really scout with your staff on being like, okay, we know those players do those types of things and that's how they scheme with one another. And I was reading an article from you on CBS Sports, and it was really talking about how you were building on this team with multi-year transfers so they can come in and have that chemistry already built. And they say that point guards is an extension of the head coach. So, in what ways is Enright an extension to you?
Well, I think he embodies what we want our program to be about. Competitive, tough, everyday guy, plays to win, understands what winning looks like, values that. You could say, well, everybody values that, but that's not necessarily true. I think we've got a group of guys that really value winning, but across the country, that's not always the case. So I think the biggest thing that I've been impressed with Connor is, he's a really competitive guy and he brings it on both ends. He's got the ability to impact the game on both ends.
Yeah, Connor has been great for you guys. I think now he's first in the Big East in assists per game, 7.6. 11 last night, career high for him. So great to see. But I'll talk about another guard for you guys, Jacob Meyer. Started last night for you guys. He's come off the bench in the first couple of games. So I guess what does it say about him that he's able to thrive, in both roles?
Yeah, I think Jacob's in a good place right now. He's in the place that he needs to be, which is, hey, I want to get better. I want to help the team in whatever capacity I'm needed. And a byproduct, when you normally think like that as a player, a byproduct is you play well. You kind of lose yourself in the team's role and whatever the role's needed, and that's your focus. And a byproduct is you end up playing better because that's your sole focused. If you get focused on other things, well, why am I not this? Why am I not that? Whatever. I want more of this. That can cloud your thinking. So for Jacob, he's really in a good place right now. He's playing well and he's contributing to our team in a lot of ways.
100%. And I think a lot of people are starting to notice the all the successful things that you're doing to DePaul earlier this season. And that's when the scouts start to come, and that's when other main people of professional departments start to make their way into Wintrust Arena. And you were spotted at the Bulls practice talking to Billy Donovan. What was that conversation about?
Yeah, Billy, I've known Billy a little bit. We've had a few conversations. He was actually getting out of college right when I was starting kind of being a head coach. So our paths didn't cross as much. But we've had multiple conversations over the years. I was there to see one of my former players, EJ Liddell, and was just spending time watching him. And the conversation was with Billy was really we talked about where we lived. We talked about Lincoln Park. We talked about kind of what his experience has been. He goes to Mass right by where I live. He's a phenomenal coach, and he gets, he's won wherever he's been. And, look at what he did at Florida. It was second to none. He's a really generous person too with his time. And I think he's a guy that is a coach's coach and someone that we all appreciate as a coach. You just appreciate, a guy who's a coach's coach. He's willing to give back to others and give back to the game.
Let me ask you about EJ now. You kind of seen the way he's gone. Now he's a part of the Bulls organization. So what's it been like for you to see him and the growth that he's had, over the years from when he first started at Ohio State?
He's been great. He was a part of 3 tournament teams at his 3 years at Ohio State with us, and a team that was a 2 seed, a COVID team his freshman year that probably would have been a 4 or 5 seed. And he just was a part of really good teams. And he was always played a big role in that, even as a freshman. He's won wherever he's been. EJ Liddell is a guy who's, he's won in middle school, high school, AAU, college, and he helps his team get better. And it's really good to see his growth as a player. He had an injury early in his NBA career that was a challenge for him. He tore his ACL, and that was a real challenge for him. So, to his credit, he's gotten better and better, and I'm just really excited about the kind of pro he's growing into.
100%. And as me and Joey were talking about yesterday, you do a fantastic job with being able to create a game plan, especially for your bigs. And me and Joey noticed it early with NJ and David on how their skill set is like the same, where David can shoot and drive to the basket. NJ is able to create that separation and open up Connor to either go to the pick and roll or find a skip pass in that possession. So, like, with that game plan and with that knowledge that you have with prior bigs, with EJ being Big Ten Player of the Year, and then so on and so forth, what's your scheme with David and NJ and all your other bigs going into the season?
Those guys, they complement each other really well. It's a kind of a nice to have a combination where David's more catch and shoot, 3-point shooting big, can also play inside, is a physical body, can stretch the floor, and has the ability to do that. And NJ is a young man who can drive you, can score in the post, is physical, can really rebound on both ends. And then you have JJ, who's kind of a hybrid of both guys. So it's nice to be able to have that combination of guys that can all step in and play the 5 spot.
When you look at NJ, obviously only 8 minutes last night, but you kind of have to tell him your time will come, your minutes will come, especially when you get in the back half of the season when you do play, UConn and Marquette and those bigger physical teams.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Last night was just a byproduct of the way they were playing. They were playing with the 6-7-4 man, and JJ right now is our best at switching. So absolutely. You can see in the prior few games, he played important roles in those prior few games. So I think his role is is going to be really important for our group. It's going to be really important, and he understands that.
Adjusting is very hard, especially when you come into a big city. And I was reading the CBS Sports article and how you were going with former staff and just talking to them about certain moves that you should do in Chicago. How has that adjustment been being in not only a big city, but your first big city coaching, the system that DePaul has? Like, talk to me about all like the environmental stuff that has really helped you out so far.
Yeah, it's the biggest city I've been in. Living in Indianapolis and Columbus, those are, two pretty good sized cities. They're just not Chicago, right? They're not kind of one of the largest cities in the country. I think we've loved the transition. You guys will realize this when you have kids and when you have a family. Like that's what's most important in the transition is making sure that they're taken care of, making sure that they're settled, making sure that my daughter has a school that she's, you know, becoming a part of and friends that she's like, that's the biggest thing for me. And that was the biggest part of the transition. But, being here in the summer was great. I've got a great AD and Dwayne Peavy to work with, who understands what basketball looks like, and he's been really helpful. So the whole transition has been a really good one.
Yeah. A couple more questions. I got one more for you. Just when looking at this team here, I guess just how fun is it to coach kind of these group of guys so far?
It's been a lot of fun, guys. It's been a lot of fun, and obviously winning helps that. But I think even had we lost the opener, or lost last night's game, I still would be sitting here with you saying, hey, this has been a fun group to coach. And it really has. It's been a group that I think they like each other. They enjoy playing together. And they, have a passion for DePaul, for building something here at DePaul. I think there are guys that we have that really care about that. They care about this program being represented well by them. And, that was important in putting a team together too. So it's been a lot of fun to coach.
And going off of the coaching staff, like it was an emphasis to have this staff with a lot of experience and it's showing right now. So what was your process of picking the right people for the right position when you were assembling this coaching staff when you got here?
A lot of it was, I had a few that I knew were like going to be no brainers for me that I was going to bring with me from Ohio State, or that I felt like fit with what we wanted to do and how we wanted to build here. Brian Mullins, I didn't know previously, but I knew if I could hire him, I wanted to hire him. Jack Owens, I leaned on him a lot. And I knew he knew the area coaching at Purdue. And then you have Paris, who had been here. Laval Jordan has been obviously a head coach and brings that experience. And they're all good. Brandon Bailey, they're all good basketball coaches. They all study the game. You don't have any that are just recruiters or just coaches. They're pretty well rounded in who they are as coaches, and that's been a really good thing.
And I think that's very important to have, especially with the group of guys that you guys have, because it's just so much experience on the floor to where you get into the position last night where Eastern Illinois grabs the lead. And then you guys go on I believe it was a 14-0 run to start the second half. And I told Joey this last night, where out of Wintrust Arena being with 2,000 people, it was just electrifying, like the most electrifying I have felt it in years. So like when you have that to start off with as a coach, how does that make you feel?
I love the venue. I love Wintrust, and we're going to get that thing more and more full. But I give a lot of credit to the students, to the fans that are coming consistently right now. Like I love that about them. I love our fans that are coming and supporting us right now, because we know more are going to come in the future. But I love this loyal fan base that's come right now. It means a lot to us as a program. It really does. And man, I just tell everybody out there who's come, we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. You keep coming. And I think it's a fun team to watch. It's a fun style of play. It's enjoyable. It's aesthetically pleasing. We got a lot of guys that are enjoyable to watch. So, man, just keep on coming. But it's been a lot of fun to be in an environment. And you mentioned it, even if the numbers aren't great at Wintrust, the energy that has been there, even we've still got a few thousand more that we can add to it.
And that's, like I said, that's the most important part when it comes to building a program, especially like DePaul, where we haven't been at that March Madness level in almost 2 decades. And anywhere you go where you had 23, I think it was either 23 or 24 wins your first year at Butler, then you turned around and had another 20 plus start at Ohio State. So when you take those two together, and you come to DePaul, what's kind of the little things that you look at being like, okay, we have to do this, we have to do that in order to get to your goals in year one?
I think it's establish how we want to play. Establish the first of it was establish the kind of kids we want in our program, the people, staff, and players that we want. That was most important. And then, establish a style in which we want to play and be committed to that. And listen, we're not a finished product as a program in year one. We've got a lot of improvements we need to make, both on the floor and growing our program and recruiting. But listen, I think again, this group is going to set the table for future groups in how we want to play. And but the first thing was establishing who we wanted, a part of our family, and then a style of play.
And I love that because it just sets the blueprint on what you want for upcoming years. So with the transfer portal being important, and you already answered it to begin with, where you want those multi-year type guys where they can gel in and be a good pace towards your team. What's kind of your game plan when it comes to recruiting and all of that stuff for
I,
future years?
I think that'll continue to be the case. The idea of multi-year transfers. You want to be able to have as many options at the end of the year to potentially return as possible, knowing not everybody's going to return, right? You're going to have some normal attrition, but I think you want to have, and then, some cases it may be best for someone to move on. But I think as much as possible, you want to have as many multi-year guys that can return as possible. That's the way we'll continue to build it.
With Layden, CJ, JJ, you guys are doing a really good job with putting together a bench. And it's really amazing to see because when you look at prior years, we didn't have the scores that we had, or we were limited to that, and we didn't really have that much depth. So walk me through on how your bench was able to construct and be consistent when you needed them the most.
Well, they're going to be important for us this year. I think our bench production is going to be really valuable, especially you get Layden back, and if he starts, now you've got another good player coming off the bench. So I think we need to have good depth for us to be able to compete at the level we want to. We need to be able to play 9 or 10 guys and play that group consistently. And I think that's going to be able to give us maybe of a different look in a certain game and just some firepower off the bench.
And what's one word that you say to your guys every single game, every single practice to have them have that chip on their shoulder, like, we're going to go out and win the Big East?
I think as much as anything, I've tried to be process driven in everything I've done as much as anything. So we don't look a whole lot to the future, to a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now. We're looking at how can we maximize today. So, I think our players would say, hey, coaches focus just on today as much as anything, doing today well as much as anything. have a great practice, have a great film session, have a great, like, really invest in that. And I think if you were to probably ask the players, that probably was probably what they would say. He doesn't talk a whole lot about, down the road. He's talking about how do we get better right now. And if we do that, it'll serve us well.
And then one last question for me is you talked about maximizing the day. And I remember last year, last night in the press conference, you were hoping for a great practice today. So in that practice today, what did you maximize today to get better?
Yeah, it's a good question. I forgot we had the day off. So what I maximized today was my film session cleanup from last night's game, where we put an edit together, a lot of film, coaches met. We've got an edit ready to show our guys tomorrow, since today they had the day off. What they do on a typical day like this is they go recovery, stretching, massage, sleep, that kind of stuff. That's what they focus on a day off today. But we got a great film session today with our guys. That's how we maximized our day.
I love to hear it. Thank you, Coach Holtman, for coming on to the show. Next game, DePaul fans, Saturday, 2:30, Northern Illinois.
That's right. That's right. I'm telling you, I'm taking you on the road. You're going to be my hype man.
Come
Okay.
on.
All
Best,
right.
best hype man in the Big East.
That's right. That's right. Hey, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for following our program, and we appreciate you guys. All right.
No problem. Have a great rest of your
Thanks,
day.
Coach. Thanks, Coach. Have a
Take
good
care,
one.
guys.
So Joey, that was that. Hey, I'm doing backflips right now in my head. That was dope.
That was a good time talking. I guess one-on-one with Coach here. A lot of great things to say. Great guy, and I think he is the right person in charge to really turn around this program. And we've seen it already. Like they're 5-0, and at this point last year, DePaul was on the other end of a losing streak. So long season, obviously. And you heard Chris Holtman say, going to take time, but you can be impressed and proud of the way that this DePaul team has started the year so far.
100%. And I think the best word to put that is gritty because we saw yesterday where there's a lot of plays where they're shaking their head and they were discouraged because a lot of bad things weren't going their way, where there was turnovers off the inbound or just sloppy passes or just not shooting the ball because the ball wasn't going in the rim. But Holtman, Connor, they were like, we have to keep going. We have to keep on doing our thing. And then you saw Isaiah being able to be like, hey, like, keep your head up and keep on doing this. I feel like that's going to be a strong emphasis on what goes into NIU and the more games after that, just because they're coming more together. And I think this is the first time that we have seen from starters all the way to walk-ons on how this team is so together. And that's going to be a big detail that we notice when we get into Big East play.
Listen, every game is not going to be easy. Like, we know this. And having those type of games where maybe you're not shooting the best, maybe you're making sloppy turnovers, maybe you're just not playing the best all-around basketball, but still find a way to win. And I think having a group that was able to come together and still come out with a victory says a lot about this group. You need those tough games. You need those gritty games to help you when you do get into Big East play, because those games are tough. Those games are going to be some ugly games. But DePaul was able to come out last night. I think it says a lot about this team that they stayed together. And that's what Jacob Myers said last night. He said, honestly, we just stayed together. And that is so big because they faced adversity in that game. They trailed into the second half, and they found a way. They went on that 14-2 run, I believe it was, early in the second half. And, from there, they cruised to a win. So having games like that is fine. They're going to happen. And it says a lot about this team that they're able to still come away with the win.
And I like what Coach Holtman said, where he said, we don't look too much in the future. We just look at how we can get better today. Because I feel like that can be very cluttering, especially as a player, when you're looking all the way at, okay, when we play UConn, when we play Marquette, when we play those top heavy hitters, St. John with Kadari Richmond now, where when we play those top heavy hitters, how are we going to solve the issues that we have in those games? And another thing too is we added guys that had March Madness experience where coming to a program like DePaul, before that, that was very rare to have. So having that, having the experience, having those types of games, like we said, is just going to help us along the way reach further than the goals that we set way before the season started.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like you need to face some adversity throughout the season. And DePaul's gonna face their adversity, but in a way they kind of faced some adversity in this game. They weren't shooting the ball great. They were turning over the ball early on and they trailed. They trailed early in that game and they eventually clicked and major shout out to Holtman and his staff for, putting together a solid second half and made some key adjustments that we heard from him in last night's game against Eastern Illinois. But this is a team that's going to face adversity, and you just got to see how they fight through that adversity. And we saw a little bit of it last night, and there's going to be more opportunities for them to face adversity. I got some big games coming up. Big East play is just around the corner. I think we're less than a month away from our first Big East game. So now's the time to work out those kinks, work out what works and what doesn't. And when you hit, we set it before the season started, man, against Texas Tech. That's going to be a big game. Where are you in the next 2 weeks when you do play Texas Tech? So big road test there, but it feels good. It feels good to see them at 5-0 at this point in the season.
And you said it yourself, if we get to Texas Tech at 6-0, if we only have one loss or if we're still undefeated towards that, we can really make some noise in the Big East. And you always see it every year with teams like St. John, with teams like Seton Hall, where yes, they might not be the most talented team, but they're always the most grittiest team. They're going for hustle plays, and that's what I love. That's what I love to saw. That's what I saw last night that I loved, where Connor was getting on the floor, getting balls, MJ was getting on the floor, getting balls, and we were fighting for those 50-50 opportunities. And I think that was a big part as to why we got the W last night.
Yeah, I mean, this team plays. They play hard, and they give it their all every single time. That's something you love about this team. Very, very hard fought battle last night. But I want to bring up. So we know that they have NIU Saturday, Valparaiso Friday. After that, it gets tough for them. So at this key stretch, I think is going to really kind of see where they're at the end of December. So we got Texas Tech on the road. Then we got our first Big East game home against Providence. Then we got Wichita State, St. John's, Northwestern, and Loyola University, Maryland. Big 6 games, I think. Big 6 games. And I know you brought it up last night. If we can have 2 losses during that span, we'll be good heading into January. But that stretch is going to be key. So you hope that DePaul can continue to improve over these next 2 games. Valparaiso, NIU, DePaul should be favored in both games. DePaul should win both games. Obviously, things happen. They maybe drop a game, but assuming they win both games, they're going to be undefeated going into the tougher part of your schedule. And, you want to see how they match up against those teams in December.
100%. 100%. We got to get a couple shout outs before we go. Shout out Smart Water for having us promote their brand. If you need water, just get Smart Water. Also, shout out wearedepaul.com. We have a writer for wearedepaul.com right here talking to us. So
Yeah.
go follow We Are DePaul. Shout out to Steve Newhouse for getting this opportunity set for the both of us. And it's time to beat the Huskies. It's time to go. It's time to play NIU, Joey. You got anything
It's
left to say?
time. It was a pleasure hopping on this call with this podcast with Holtman. Great guy. I I said it earlier. I think he's the right guy to have in charge for this team and turn around the program. Yeah, it was a great one-on-one interview with Holtman.
I couldn't agree more. Go have a great rest of your day. We're out of here. Go follow Blue Demon Banter Podcast on Spotify, Apple, Instagram, and follow dpu.banter on TikTok. We're out of here. Peace.